Please watch the video until the end, the last moments carry the deepest revelation. Chapter 1, Arrival at Isla Verde. This narrator, a man who had once learned how to forgive himself by learning to forgive another, knew the geography of longing. He watched them arrive, Arthur and Elise, arriving in separate flights and the same bruised hearts, stepping from the humidity into the lazy, burdened heat of Isla Verde. They were not strangers to each other's shadows. After 2 decades as a pair, divorce had left them cataloging each other's absences. They had come for their daughter, Maya, who had announced, on the kind of whim that still made a parent's stomach tighten, that she would marry a local craftsman named Matteo beneath the island palms. She wanted swiftly to bind herself to someone who had taught her how to fish by moonlight and how to laugh without measuring the cost. Arthur and Elise, convinced that the speed of it would drown her discernment, conspired to stop the ceremony. On the ferry, they exchanged the old currency of barbed jokes and practiced indifference. But the island, with its slow rhythms and kind-faced people, offered a different ledger, warm bread handed without a question, an old woman pressing a necklace into Elise's palm with a knowing smile, and a breeze that felt like a memory turned luminous. Chapter 2, Schemes and Missteps. Arthur, practical and quick to laugh at danger, drew charts and plans on napkins. Elise, decisive and fluent in sarcasm, drew lines through them. Their mission felt noble and urgent, which made their sabotage clumsy and, at times, comical. Arthur tried to slow a rehearsal by persuading the officiant that the tide schedule made the chosen beach impractical. Elise sent a mismatched set of invitations that arrived in the wrong hands with the wrong times. A borrowed friend of Arthur's pretended to be a former fiancé, producing a ridiculous set of photographs that only made Matteo grin and Maya roll her eyes at her parents' theatrics. Each attempt to derail the union only tightened Maya's resolve, his fellow islanders' affection for Matteo revealed as sincere and rooted, not the fling that Arthur and Elise imagined. In the evenings, after the day's schemes, they sat on a weathered pier and measured the moon against the angles of their past. The narrator knew, because he had listened to them in the pauses, that the reasons for their divorce lay scattered like shells, a series of compromises given and accepted until there was nothing left to trade. The island did not erase those fractures but gave them a new surface to see them on, like light across an old photograph. Chapter 3, The Island Unravels Them. As days unspooled, Isla Verde began to unpick defenses. Arthur and Elise found themselves coaxed into small intimacies they had not planned on, sharing a single towel, arguing gently over who had left sand in the car, joining a local band for one drunken, perfect song under lantern light. The narrator noted these moments with the tenderness of someone who knows the miraculous slowness with which love returns. They met Matteo's family, who offered them a corner at dinner and an honest look at the kind of man their daughter planned to marry. He carved wood whose grain matched his patience. He hummed old sea songs. When Arthur watched him coax a stubborn child into laughter, the old rivalries in him softened. When Elise saw the way Matteo looked at Maya, steady, fond, without calculation, her protests dwindled into a quieter worry, what Maya really hoped to find. Their mock conspiracies transformed into earnest attempts to see, to understand. The narrator, an observer who had once stood by and misjudged, felt a comedian's relief, that in trying to control the future, they had begun to learn how to hold it lightly. Chapter 4, Confessions by Starlight. A storm rolled in one night, sudden and temperamental, so the ceremony planners called a halt. Inside the small guest house, with the rain writing messages on the windows, Arthur and Elise spoke like people who had been denied the chance to finish sentences for years. They spoke of small betrayals and larger silences, of the sonnets they had not written and the children they had raised with careful hands. Elise confessed that she had longed, sometimes, to run away with a man who could match her temper. Arthur admitted he had been afraid, of losing control, of being found uninteresting when the years had been unmasked. Their confessions were not tidy apologies but threads, and as they spoke, the narrator watched those threads begin to weave anew. When the storm passed, the sky leaned sharpened and clean. They walked the shoreline together and, without grand rhetoric, kissed in a way that belonged more to the weather than to any plan, as if the island itself whispered permission. Chapter 5, The Choice. On the morning of the planned ceremony, everything assembled with a kind of humble beauty, strings of shells, chairs rescued from the shore, friends with combed hair. Arthur and Elise found Maya alone, humming to herself beneath the fronds. They did not lead with arguments this time. They told her what they had learned on the island, that love demanded generosity and a willingness to see the other whole, not to guard a future like a ledger. Maya, whose bravery had always been half courage and half impatience, listened. She spoke of wanting to step outside of a life already measured by her parents' expectations, of feeling the pull of a home whose borders felt undefined and kindly. She was not running from them, she hoped, in Mateo, to find someone who offered roots that felt like wings. Arthur and Elise surprised themselves. They stepped away from sabotage and offered instead a softer gift, their blessing, accompanied by the honest caveat that a marriage needed tending. In doing so, they found they were blessing each other. In the narrator's reckoning, it was the most romantic act, releasing the need to command the story and allowing it to breathe. Chapter 6, New Maps. The ceremony, when it came, was unadorned and full of small miracles. Maya and Mateo traded promises that were less about perfection than about practice. Arthur and Elise sat side by side, not because divorce had been undone with a single look, but because the island had shown them how to imagine a life that allowed for both repair and imperfection. After the guests had gone and the lanterns burned low, the three of them walked the beach. Arthur took Elise's hand, a simple thing, but an old gravity, and she did not pull away. The narrator, with the quiet authority of someone who has watched loves form and reform, claimed no certainty about the future. He only knew that the map they now carried was different, less about correct routes and more about compasses that could be adjusted. Isla Verde stayed with them like light at dawn, warm, unassuming, and patient. They left in separate cars, as they had arrived, but the roads that took them from the island were no longer edges, they were possible beginnings. If you enjoyed this tale, please subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, give the video a like, leave a comment, and share the video with friends who love stories of second chances.